All right. All right. And I'm gonna go. I'm remember to go live on LinkedIn today. So that's a great step in the right direction here. All right. Here we are. It's what is it, June 6th, and I managed to upset the entire DevOps world this morning. So if you've shown up to tell me all the reasons I'm wrong, I'd love to hear your input, but we'll get to that in a little bit. We had a really great week. Rob, are you on the call here?
Yep.
You got me some shirts. Look nice. And
That's
oh,
right.
like
Back in the laundry, you guys are looking good.
I see Nick's wearing his too. Good job, Nick. Yeah, so we some swag, and we the logo's extra big to show up nicely on these calls. So that's exciting. Yeah, so who we got lined up? I know you probably sent me an email, but I've been, my Friday ridiculously packed. So here we
Yeah,
are.
no. Yeah, it's great. So today we've got Xiao Hang Hu, and he's the fellow who built Athena
Hello.
AI. There's Xiao. So the lightning talks we usually get started around 12:30 or so. So welcome, Xiao. And the Athena AI, it's a chat app that focuses on displaying visualizations for users. So really successful, over 1 million users. So that should be neat to see and to hear from Xiao. And then Dami's got a tool that he's building to for an educational platform for young ones. And then Braun's got an evolution of his visual brainstorming tool, which should be really neat to see. So
Oh,
some good, nice lineup today.
no, great. Well, well, I'm always excited to see what Bron's been up to. He's always cooking up something creative.
Yeah.
And we had another one of our meetups this week in Toronto. We had a great turnout for that. We Martin and Nick and obviously Rob. You did a great presentation. I'm not sure how many people were there, but it seemed like a pretty packed room, huh? Like lots of
Yeah,
folks.
it filled up. I think we ran somewhere around 40 some odd. And then of course we got Toronto Tech Week coming up on the 26th. And there's a lot of folks registering for that already. So that's going to be a big one. Indianapolis, Indiana, Cornelius is all set up. He's set his Luma date for June 17th. Stockholm is coming up and live and gathering steam right now. Some really interesting folks from Europe that are already getting or participating in that. And then Paris and New York City.
Yeah, we've got we're just starting to get organized around Paris, and interestingly enough, I saw Kelsey at the event on Tuesday, and she's just like, "I'm going to be in Paris in about a month. We should do an event there focused on sort of creativity and art and fashion." And well, you need to meet Vincent. So one thing Tuesday. And looks like we're going to be organizing a nice event here in Paris. So here, I'm not there, but anyway, in Paris. So that should be exciting. So if anyone is interested in helping with Paris, I think we're gonna probably do our kickoff call next week on that particular organization. New York is coming together, right? I saw there was a sign up form somewhere or other. That's what do we know what the date of that is yet?
Yep, we're just confirming the dates and the locations. We should have that today, and then we'll have that Luma set up and ready for circulation. And also, Madhuit and Bensa, they've got another event coming up in London. They're invited to join. I think it's the University of Greenwich. Is that right, Madhuit?
Yeah, it's the University of Greenwich. So it's actually a conference. So we just have been invited to participate in it for basically around this theme. So there's a panel discussion, and we are planning a mini hackathon, which I would like to get some ideas from this group here. A remote mini hackathon over a couple of days, and then a Friday close session.
Yeah, that sounds like exciting news. Like so you like a mini hackathon. So you want to do something like in like the run of like a half an hour or an hour kind of hackathon? Is that what you're looking to do?
So we can introduce Spark, right? And then say this is a new word. And have you got an idea? So you now we know, go and crack the problem, identify a problem. You got one full remote day to do it remotely. And then hopefully if we can get our acts together on Friday evening, there will be a show and tell of some. And probably we'll do kind of an hour, 2 hour of workshop. just to kind of take people along, introduce them to what we are doing here. So that's the idea.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I
Oh,
love to give you some. Yeah. Go ahead.
There is there are key results we are after. So the professor wants to, the objective is to spur discussion on this topic, right? And under SMB businesses. And what we
Mhm.
want to do is that see through the hackathon, can we come up with some kind of a research output from the university in a post-event fashion? So that's another thing we will see what we can do about it. So it's a bit fluid, but that's the plan broadly.
Okay, well, that sounds exciting. Speaking of, research, I briefly did a implementation of that Wi-Fi sort of see-through walls research that came out, I think, earlier last year, actually. And I pointed at the Perplexity Lab and built a implementation, which I might have shared last week. That went viral, apparently, and I think I was saying I had like 1 million or something views on the Reddit, and about half the world thinks it's the worst thing that was ever invented. Just to be clear, that's not seeing through people's clothing or anything crazy like that. It's literally showing the outline of like whether someone's in a house, like and the momentum and how many people are there. So for all the folks who seem to think that I've destroyed privacy, well, it's not quite as bad as you think. And the point of that post, just to be clear, wasn't to infringe on privacy. It was to show that you could literally point some of these systems at research and get it to build it in a matter of moments. But
Yeah.
sometimes the nuance is lost in these things. So what can you do? But
And
speaking
look,
of,
I remember that in DEF CON, man, in Black Hat, man. I remember presentations on Black Hat and DEF CON that did the same thing. I think the difference is you're doing it at a completely different scale, right? But it's,
well,
you know,
I did it in 45 minutes,
yeah,
and well, I knew it
exactly.
wasn't me. It wasn't me that did it. It was Perplexity
Yeah,
Labs. I just said go do that, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, you know how it goes. Anyway, it went viral, so
Yeah.
the subreddit is doing quite well at this point. But so the other thing I'm gonna do today is I want to show you guys some of the things I've been working on in regards to Claude Code, which I think is my new. Obviously, I love Rue code. It's a great system. I try, earlier this week yesterday actually, I was trying the new version of Cursor. It doesn't even come close to the capabilities of Rue code, but I have found that Claude code it is one of the best in terms of coming close. It's not as elegant in terms of the UI, but in terms of like capability, it's very good. And what I want to show you guys quickly today is kind of a workflow that I've been working on, combining kind of the Lovable and the Claude Code system. So for those that aren't familiar, the Claude Code came out with this CLI. It's similar to some of the other CLIs you see around. But the ones that it's kind of reminiscent actually of Aider. If for those that remember the presentations we did last year when I was all about Aider, it's very similar to Aider in sort of structure. It's got MCP integrations. It's a really great sort of system for basically point and forget. It's not quite as the components that we have for Rue, but it's pretty close. And you can use it from the point of view of an SDK. You can refactor, you can build, you can vibe, all that kind of stuff. And one of the nicest features is it has the ability to use the Pro and the Max and Max X, I guess, whatever they're calling it here, which means you're not using the API. So if you're a power user like me that blasts through like, $100 worth of credits in a day, this is a much, much better use. So it's substantial, at least for me, it's substantially cheaper. So I'm currently using I think I'm using Max 5, which again for me is $100. I blast through quite quickly. So I want to show you some of the stuff I was working on. So there's two approaches to sort of the development of things. There's one is the architecture from the bottom, and the other is from the top. So what I wanted to do here is create a little website, like a fake kind of startup that allows me to create these VS Code swarms. It's a site I created in Lovable quite quickly, and then I had a back end so that you can implement it. So then what I did is I went in and synced it to my GitHub, and I implemented the code directly in that. So I'll show you what that looks like. So in this case, I'm running I installed the Claude code. You can see here. Then I get it to review my various components, and you can see that I found some issues, and it creates some documentation, and it's running and creating the various components that it needs to create. Um, And what's great about this, again, let's go down to the bottom here. I'm just gonna, I can do something like, the various settings like bugs or whatever. I can look at the cost. Let's look at show the total cost of the current session. I think I might start it, but we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, there's no worry about cost because I'm not using the API. That's awesome. Auto accept edits is on. So now I can say, tell me about how to use the VSC remote. So now you can see here it's doing it's thinking. It's not quite as it doesn't quite give me as much insight into what it's thinking as Rucode does, but it does seem to do a really good job of building and following instructions. And really all I did here was I just gave it the Spark instructions that I use for my other systems, and it just kind of followed that iterative test environment. So you can see here, like we go here, and I made some updates. So in this case, we've got the plans folder. You can see that here's the core architecture. It created a VS remote structure, and this is supposed to be like an MPX library you can install. I ended up creating it as a MPM or sorry MCP style component. So you can see what it ended up building. Some additional plans in here. Message formats and request response. So basically what this does, well, let's just run the whole kit and caboodle here for you. I'll go here. Actually, I'm already running it. I'm gonna go back here. So it basically created me a startup just for today's call, which is kind of cool. I started this morning on my exercise bike, and I can deploy my swarm. I can go in here and choose my configurations and my network settings and do my analysis. It's all kind of built in. Looks like I'm having some font color issues. I guess that's minor, whatever. But yeah, it's basically can deploy my swarms of VS Code instances. So basically what I've built is an MCP that essentially can build and deploy other VS Code instances on my behalf as a swarm of coding agents. So I basically use this Claude Code system to build that, this morning, just for this call. So, you can see here that it's telling me how to use it. So let's just see if it works. So this is I can deploy the instance. Well, let's give it a spin. This, like a year ago, this would have been like probably a $10 million, startup. Oh, it gave me not in the right folder. That explains it. Let's go into the CD, VSC remote, the demo guides. Let's see if they smile at me. Of course, it worked earlier. All right, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, I'm getting an error. All right, well, we'll have to come back to this. Oh, it's trying to. I never published it. I never published it to the NPM, so it's not finding this. All right, let's ask it one more question. How do I run this locally? I know how to run it locally, but run the npm locally. I haven't published it. The error is basically I need to publish it to my npm repo, which I never bothered to do yet. So it's giving me the command to run it locally, install the dependency. Yeah, sure, go ahead and do that. It's always interesting to see how it debugs it, to be honest. But it's a great system. I'm still trying to figure out how to make it a little more automated, but so far it builds pretty much anything I point at it really, really quickly and easily. And again, I like the fact that I don't have to pay for all the API calls. I did max out the Opus option, but then it switched to Sonnet. So I've actually come around to Opus 2, by the way. It seems to work quite well for more complex coding challenges. So let's see what it's running now. So it's running. Oh, it's just running dev. Okay, let's do that. npm1 dev. Yeah. I don't know. It's what folder I'm in the BS. Or yeah, it looks like there's a UI. Let's see what I've got going here. I don't think I gave it. Yeah, I gave it another UI. Anyway, it's the system. It's if you're looking to save some money, the moral of the story is you can jump between something like a Lovable or VO or any of these sort of web-based sort of user interfaces, and then you can go and run the run this instead of using Brew code, which costs you quite a bit of money. You can just use this to sort of do fix-ups or whatever you need to do. Just point it at your planning folder and other components, and you're off to the races quite quickly.
Can it go through the TDD process?
Yeah, it's got the it can run all the tests. It can do all the same stuff essentially Roo does. And again, you can actually invoke it directly from the SDK as well. So if you want to like have a coding system built right into some other application, you can do that as well. So it's kind of a cool system. Looks like it's trying to run the UI.
My wife thanks you for the changing plans for the weekend now, Roo. Thanks.
Yeah, it's cool. Let's see. Run the. It's actually running the UI. I don't want the UI. Run the MCP server. It's combined both the MCP server and the UX. So I'm gonna see if I can. Looks like there's a subfolder called Remote VS Code. Here it is. No run MCP. All right, run it. I'll publish this too later for you guys if you want to play around with it. A little bit. It's this right here for me is the biggest challenge with it. I like even though I have the auto execute command running, it still keeps asking me. It says yes. Don't ask this to run again.
If you can start it with there's a special switch called dangerously
Yeah,
allow
dangerous.
all. Yeah.
-P. Yeah. I'm not running that. I'm currently running the interactive mode, but basically you're getting the idea here. All right. I'm out of time anyway, but it's a cool little project worth looking at. So far I'm a fan of it. Yeah, and there are also other commands as you mentioned. Claude, what is it? Claude help, I think is the command to find those. Yeah, here we go. So you've got different modes here. So in this case, I like the verbose mode as well, which lets me see exactly what's happening. You can add MCPs directly into the flow, which is kind of a cool option. You've got a number of different options here. What was that one you said? Dangerous mode or something like that? I think it was -P, run dangerously or something like that. Yeah, here it is. Dangerously skip permissions. Bypass all permissions checks. Recommend only for sandboxes with no internet access. Yeah, I don't know about that. That might be taking it a little bit far. Like I think you're running in a code space, you're probably okay. It also supports basically the same MCPs as Roo, so you can literally just use the same MCPs you set up for your Roo or your Claude environment. You can actually run this whole thing, Claude as an MCP. I think by running yeah, here it is, MCP serve. So once you have this running as MCP, like this, I don't know if it gives you an output, but you can then you can add this MCP to your MCP settings in VS Code, for MCPs or Roo or Client or Cursor or whatever you like, and then you can have those systems actually orchestrate this as well. So it's kind of a cool secondary system. It's worth looking at. Now, this is actually running. It just doesn't give you a message indicating that it is, but I was able to get it working using this earlier, so it's kind of a good option. So these are your different options here. It's cool. Worth checking out for sure. All right, I managed to get this done in a record amount of time this morning, this afternoon, whatever we are at here. Anyone play with Claude Code at all? Any comments on it? I know someone mentioned the.
Well, I read an interesting article about it that was suggesting using it not just to work on software projects, but to actually be your CLI for your general like computer use. And he gave it examples of like telling it to aggregate some files and transfer them, post them or something. I thought it was interesting to do kind of DevOps style tasks.
Yeah, it's because I think the MCP integration is particularly useful. So all those things you probably run in the Claude desktop can also be run directly through this as a sort of CLI and you can automate pretty much anything with it. And so with that dangerous or the dash P option, which was pretty cool. I'm not sure how dangerous it actually is. I don't run this stuff locally, just to be clear. I'm a little paranoid to run this stuff on my local environment anyway. So that's why I'm using these code spaces, or just spinning up a container somewhere and using that to do this.
Hey, Ruth, have
Yeah.
you tried having them basically do like A/B testing? So you have root code set up with your API, and then the Claude code, like doing another one, and then kind of A/B test against each other.
No, but it's an interesting idea, and that's actually someone brought up a similar question on a call I was on earlier this morning. They're asking, if you run the same task twice, like using the same exact plans, do you get a different application or a different structure or architecture of that application? And that is something I tried a few times, and the answer is yes, you do. And what's interesting is the approach to using these systems are generally declarative, meaning that you're kind of giving it broad guidelines, but you're giving it, here's the architecture and here's the pseudocode. But oftentimes there's difference, not huge differences, but different minor differences in the way that it implements those. And when you start adding like MCPs to go and research the results or the problems and to get the results, there's significant variance in what the end application looks like in that. So to your point, likely what we're trying with an A/B test isn't necessarily just the optimal output, the final app, but also the least amount of cost and steps to get to that optimal output. And that's a benchmark that a lot of folks aren't actually looking at. They're looking at like random GitHub issues and saying, well, based on SWE bench, we can solve 70% of them with one shot, which is interesting. But what we're really trying to benchmark is, how many shots does it take to build a really complicated application?
Yeah, and what I've been playing with is having MCP set up basically the boilerplate, and have that in MCP, and then have them call it, and like use the boilerplate, but then also get creative with that boilerplate like on top of it. So it kind of helps structure it a bit better than it just doing its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, the MCP infused flow, whether that's dev or DevOps or some other process, is probably the most interesting part of sort of the agentic engineering process right now. Where like several months ago, a lot of the stuff that we were doing was sort of bespoke. We'd have to instrument each step, we'd have to create evaluation loops and optimize based on those loops. Now we suddenly have the ability, all these somewhat random MCPs as part of those flows. Now, that induces a whole lot of security related concerns, but stepping from that aside, it also introduces a really easy way to sort of instrument various types of multi-step processes that becomes substantially easier to do, at least test anyway, which is pretty exciting.
I was actually on a call with I think the founder of Replit, and he said something super interesting that adds on to what you're saying, Rue, which is this is all a function of memory. Like as I'm building out applications that are complicated and you lose context or VS Code crashes, he talked about the context of memory. Like if you're a researcher, it'll take you 7 years to figure something out. But if you look at the function with which memory is increasing, right, in terms of the sessions that AI can hold as you're writing a prompt or processing through something, the complexity of the task, like you said, from the instrumenting, like just in the last 6 months, the ability to instrument and be declarative and have every single function, as opposed to how much can the application hold in memory to move things forward. So it'll be crazy, to see, what is the relationship between memory and the context window and your functionality, right? Because it's basically what you have to orchestrate.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of those, just quick question. Is there like a good metric? So like you have a genic task to like develop a complex system, right? And you have all these variables. You can use different set of MCP. You could be like with knowledge graph, without knowledge graph. how would you evaluate the quality of the developed system? Like, is there?
That's always been subjective. Like when you run SCC and tells you it's worth X dollars and the complexity is some arbitrary number, that's always been a subjective sort of, number and view, right? So it really depends on what you're doing and what the application is, right? And so I would break that down into one, is it an existing application and the ability for the system to work with large existing complex apps of some sort. And the other, which is arguably generally is something net new in the output and complexity of the thing that you're building. So like the example would be like the other day when we did that Wi-Fi thing that sort of looks at people through walls. That's arguably easier, and because it could just build it and test it based on something that I was building from scratch based on some research paper
Oh, yes.
versus trying to build based on existing code, which is easier to navigate, but more difficult to potentially integrate. So they're different problems. Anyway, I don't know if I don't think we have a solution necessarily other than how you would examine it. Yeah. All right. So Rob, how we doing here? You want to bring in our first guest?
Yeah, perfect timing. Why don't we start with Xiao? Hi, Xiao. How are you?
Nope.
Oh, there he is.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
All right. So here I'm presenting Athena AI. We have Athena AI is AI that initially focused on visualization. Can I share my screen over here? Let me just find the share button over here. So essentially here, this is Athena Chat is kind of like a ChatGPT, but we're focusing on visualize things as much as in the chat app over here. So for example, if I do like generate a flowchart, I describe the Google interview process, you actually generate like a chart like that. Now, if you do that in like essentially what it does is it does the mermaid code and then you visualize the mermaid code with a mermaid renderer. The same thing we're doing that with latex. Now, if you do it in the ChatGPT, you try to generate an image instead of like a detailed like mermaid workflow here. So same thing with latex here. This is like printing in latex format over here. Right, in case I'm asking like a question, math question or chemistry question, you will actually render it in latex format in chat over here. And other than those type of mathematical format, we also have like just product and trip planning. For trip planning, rather than just chatting about trip planning, we actually display like travel deals here in chat here. You see here, this is because I was asking like in 3 months, you actually give me the deal in exactly 3 months over here. So you see like, yeah, it says, okay, you need to travel in 3 months. I'm getting you the deal for 3 months. And of course, you also have the flight to the destination, which will also set it in 3 months from now. From Toronto, all the filters are already set for me. You can just look for the price. And yeah, that's and the same here with activities. I think activities, another provider over here is called Get Your Guide. So it also sets like to Shanghai here right away for you. So and yeah, and obviously a more trivial one is product. You can if you just prompt I need the new smartphone, it will give you the smartphone over here. this we are bundled with the Affiliate API on Amazon and AliExpress. So you see, like, we have the text-based answer as well. We have the product here, the text-based answer, and also the sources. Yeah, so and obviously you can do HTML, and those are really trivial. I think other platform can do that too. For example, give me like a product shoot of a gaming chair over here. And this takes some time to generate because it's an image. Yes, so I can then say, pull that sell that.
Yeah, how'd you build it? I think we all get perplexity, but what makes you different than the multitude of sites that do exactly what you're showing?
Multitude of sites that do exactly what I'm showing. I mean, I will just focusing on the convenience, right? Rather than like publicity, for example, is a search app, right? You search for things on the internet. We do specific integration. So, for example, the travel deal one is actually bundled with another startup's API that we fetch exact travel deal. If you do the same, I can actually do the same on Perplexity. I have it right here, right? So I have all
So why would just a quick, why would we use yours over Perplexity?
Because it's more specific, right? So Perplexity is a search engine. We're not a search engine. We do specific integration. For example, with travel APIs, that's a specific integration that looks deal for you around the destination at a specific date. So I can do the same prompt on Perplexity. Okay, those are like the business around that area. Good luck with that, right? It doesn't give you the deal. It doesn't give you the call to action to book, right? So that's I think the difference.
Are you a service or are you a like software that I can install and customize this myself?
It's more, I'd say, like it's not really for technical people. It's for like non-technical people that I get what they're looking for right away. They can book, they can do any kind of action that they want without doing a lot of technical setup. That's like the target audience we're aiming for.
I think it's a challenging space, right? You're competing with Google, which basically does this on the homepage now.
Yeah, we actually use Google behind the scene too, right? We use the Google like search as well, but we're looking for, like I said, we're looking for specific integration and not like the general things. For example, I can again prompt the same thing on Gemini here on Google search. You would just like Perplexity, you would give you, oh, this is roughly what you do, and give you like a long list of things to do rather than something exact. Right. So that's
Xiao,
like,
if I could just, so
yeah.
you're saying is that, hey, we're creating a wrapper around this that makes things a lot more specific for the users. So
Yeah.
what we're going to, and within that, it's not just a specific search using Perplexity. We're actually setting up specific relationships with vendors in that sphere, in that area, vendors or providers that would not necessarily be surfaced via Google or Perplexity. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Is it a Shopify app, Xiao?
The Shopify app we have a Shopify app too. That's even more specific because we have a very customized workflow building around that.
Are you using Shopify's new MCP server that they just announced from last week?
No, we are not using. We're using,
we're
using a mix of NA8 and also DeFi.ai, which they both support MCP.
Oh, so you have MCP integration here?
Not here, but for the Shopify one. Yeah.
So you don't have MCP support? You're just using
on the chat on the regular chat, we don't have it yet. We only have it on the Shopify app.
Okay. My personal opinion, you guys all know my personal opinion on wrappers. I just think it's a tough business to be in personally. like I see this, I see what you're building. I'm like I could crank that out in a few minutes, right? So maybe I'm the wrong audience, right?
Yeah, of
And
course. Like this is not in for technical people. That's for sure.
yeah,
So I was like playing around with it. Like I'm planning a trip in December, right? So like
Mhm.
I'm multiple cities like in India, right?
Yeah.
So I followed your example, but I think it's just great for like people who are in a travel and others because it's come back with like every city accommodation wise asking me for my budget amounts, right? And it's very
Yeah.
accurate in like plugging that. So I have multiple tabs open now. So I can basically very quickly go and book things. So I think the audience, I think, is that like people like casual
Yeah.
users who are looking for,
Exactly.
travel industry. I think is it's a big change
Yeah.
that is a potential here. That's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, yeah, like we're not aiming for technical people because like we are aiming for no technical people that can do this on the go. I'm showing that on a desktop right now, but most of the users are using our like the mobile version. So and they can do it on the go. They like their people are not using that for coding. That's not the goal here. That's not the point here. People are using that for like just brainstorming. For example, generate a flow chart, like then travel recommendation, and yeah, like very specific like needs they are looking for. For sure that is not for the technical audience. We're not aiming for a technical audience. There are no developer are using that, so I can confirm that part.
Great. Can I ask a question on deployment? Can you run this, like, for example, a customer, could they say, can I run your platform in an environment, right? They say, like just reference, I think that you still have an edge, and I agree with the idea that wrappers are very dangerous because you can be commoditized, but there's still value if you can make something simpler as long as you move fast, right? I think the interesting angle that I'm interested to see how you answer this is that from a privacy and from a security point of view, can you run this in an isolated environment? Can the company deploy this completely isolated and then customize or remove stuff that they don't care about?
Oh yeah, like then that's the custom integration, right? It's not a plug and play. Then we just use our like the we do.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, can I deploy your entire stack in a clean AWS environment?
Not yet. Yeah, if there's a demand, yeah, of course you can do that. But right now we're more like a consumer facing chat app.
So you have one copy of this?
Yes,
running.
exactly. Yeah, we have one copy of this running.
Yeah. So if I just make a comment, figure out how to do that, because I think there's there's two things I think you get. There's a lot of good business opportunities. Also, there's a lot of things you won't need to develop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because the customer, and I'll tell you, when I was a CISO, there was a massive difference between somebody who wanted to deploy something that now I have to protect freaking where the hell is running and the data, etc., than something I could run in our environment.
Yes, we totally understand that, and if there's demand, we can do that, right? So we can just deploy separate instances.
All right, it's not as easy. I spent 3 months to figure out a tech stack that actually runs everywhere, right? It's not easy at all. There's so many little curveballs that you'll be surprised. Like blow up your entire AWS or whatever you run in cloud, and then see how fast see how long it's going to take you to set up all of this from scratch.
I see, yeah, because we use both we use both Vertex and Bedrock, so we're familiar with both infrastructure. So usually when someone wants to do like do it on AWS, we just use Bedrock, and if it's Google, we use Vertex. So yeah, so that's the way. Yeah.
Xiao, also when we were talking there at the Toronto meetup, you were saying that that you like to speak to how a ChatGPT wrapper can compete with big tech.
Yes, I do. Yes, I can. I give zero talk on that actually. So my point of this is, this is totally branding, right? So in fact, right, if you give a can of Coca-Cola or a can of Pepsi, and then you hide the brand and you ask most people to taste, they wouldn't tell what Coke it is, or even even you can try that with some local Coke brands, right? Most people wouldn't even recognize it. Same with wrappers, because you can build your own wrapper. You just advertise it your own way on social media. You become an influencer on, I don't know, like a career advice GPU wrapper. And yeah, you can do good with it, right? Because normally, like ChatGPT and like Perplexity and all the big chat app, they cannot find 1,000 different angle to advertise their stuff, right? That's if you can, it's kind of like a branded T-shirt essentially, right? You can start the same way you start your own clothing brand. You can start like your wrapper brand, and this only works when you advertise it to a consumer. So the D2C approach, because if you advertise to technical people, then people know that whatever you can do, ChatGPT can do it too. Or with a few line of code, with a few line of adjustment, they can do it. They can make it work with their own wrapper or something like that, right? So the audience would be like the same with I can argue the same as if you run a D2C e-commerce brand, you are not selling that to like t-shirt makers. Like that's like you cannot sell that to a t-shirt maker because t-shirt maker say I can make that t-shirt in 2 minutes and it costs me like I don't know 20 cents. So how can you sell to that to me, right? So that's
So
I think
Coca-Cola
same. Yeah,
Coca-Cola is a great example in terms of taste
yeah,
testing, but Coca-Cola is a successful company because of its distribution infrastructure.
yeah,
They're actually a logistics company and a distribution company. The people who make the most amount of money are the people who own the distribution rights in the countries and in the regions, right?
yeah,
And there's a reason why Google was paying Apple $1 billion a year to be the default
exactly.
search application on their phone. So that would
Yeah,
be the second part. Like if you focus on travel, and I wrote a post on this yesterday. I think like
yeah,
TripAdvisor is this massive arbitrage between
yeah,
SEO and SEM, and they have such a big search engine marketing budget that they disintermediate all of the hotels. So I do think like as the community has said that there's an opportunity there, but it's still going to be distribution, distribution, distribution. Even if
yeah,
you narrow it and you focus on consumers, there's it that's what it really boils down to.
All
yeah.
right.
Thank you
Yeah.
for the comment.
Yeah. Good. And then thanks for the presentation. It'll be interesting to see how you do. I found it interesting that your comment on branding is a differentiation, yet I see no branding on your example. But so it's almost like the lack of branding for you is your thing or something. But I appreciate you taking the time to give us the demo today and
Yeah, thank you.
we wish you well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Bob. We have Bron or Dami. Who's up? Who do we have?
Oh, I'm here.
There's Dami.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Pretty good, thanks. Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. My name is Damie. Yeah, so um, I'm working on a product that's focused on also Shopify's ecosystem a little bit. And the product itself is a visual editor for Shopify developers and potentially merchants. So yeah, the problem being solved here is there aren't many AI tools for Shopify developers. So here we have, I'll show you guys a landing page. So there's V0, there's Bolt, there's Lovable, there's like 10 other new tools that come out every week that focus just on JavaScript. In fact, I can actually visualize the problem area a bit more. So in this space, there's quite a lot of companies building like for JavaScript and HTML, but there's really nobody building for Shopify Liquid, which is like Shopify's templating language for most of their stores. Some of their stores do use JavaScript, but they're actually leaning more towards Liquid. And there aren't many tools that work well for Liquid. Part of the reason why is because there are different versions of Liquid that exist that are also similar to Jekyll. So the training data just doesn't, is just not going to get it right. And I think they keep changing, Shopify keeps changing things related to Liquid. So I think unfortunately, there probably won't be any AI models that actually will understand Liquid properly. So we've been working in this space since September and built a lot of internal tools and different things that kind of pertain to Liquid. And prior to that, we had built the first text to Figma plugin, which kind of relates to this as well. But the focus now is building this visual IDE specific to Liquid, but eventually trying to bring it all back together into one centralized design language for building interfaces. But here, it's the landing page. I want to create a hero banner about cookies, about a group called Agentics. Uh, right, and then I'm going to generate the landing page. So now we have this canvas that looks just like it looks similar to Figma, not like Figma, sorry. And it's going to generate me two versions. This is a staging version, so the designs might not look the best, but we're currently testing stuff. But yeah, there's two different versions that are created. So as a user, you'll have two options that are visually outputted. I'm not sure why the text isn't showing up properly. This is interesting. Um,
The demo gods.
Demo guys.
that's
Yeah,
so fascinating. Yeah, like usually it doesn't do
It's a
this.
thing. It's a thing. Don't worry
That's
about it.
hilarious.
Just roll with it. We wouldn't even notice if you hadn't said it.
That's funny. No, I wanted to change the text, but yeah, I
Oh,
think
okay.
that at some point it should change the text in the second version. But yeah, the main thing here is that a lot of these tools end up making you wait to see the visual output. Like I call it like the slot machine waiting for like the code, whatever. But I don't think that's the future. I think the future is more visual, in my opinion, where you can see the output and kind of see like the visual things change. Part of the visual part of the visuals is also be able to change the font size. So we have like this editor here where you can go in and like quickly change things, also hide layers. And you can also prompt as well. So here I could say, make the colors or purple, and then in a few seconds, or make the colors, well, demo gods for real.
Now
Make
this
the
is
back.
interesting, Dami, because like a custom or one of the premium templates in Shopify can run you $200 just for one design. Isn't that right?
Yeah, no, that's like it's super interesting how that happens, yeah. Yeah, like I think like we want to disrupt part of that. And I guess the reason why this editor is broken right now is because we have a new launch coming up for a theme store. And part of the idea for theme store is rather than paying Shopify for a, like a premium theme or trying out a bunch of different themes,
Yeah.
you can come into our theme store, enter your website URL, and then we'll show you what your website could look like across a bunch of different layouts. And yeah, like it just shows you like, oh, like this is what this could look like. Um, and you can look at your different page templates to also see the outputs as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, this needs to be a bit more polished, but it's almost there. It's just one thing that was interesting is last week we fixed a bug that was like a one-line bug issue that was related to getting some of this data to display. But yeah, that's the premise. And some of the cool things about this is we built a lot of internal tools to make this stuff happen. So if I want to scrape a website, I just enter the URL, and then we actually um, I'll put the staging version. We categorize all the data into like the images, the color. Well, this is new. We're gonna have the brand colors, the brand fonts, the brand radius, and like we do the same thing in Shopify. So we have like this concept of shops that has links and some text and also products and collections and whatnot. So um, building this data structure internally has made things has made things better for us. One thing that we also built that's sort of new is this tailwind um, to Liquid generator. So essentially, like what I can do here is let me go into Shopify and pick one of these templates. So let's say I like this template here,
120 US.
and I want to copy this template. So Tailwind's really good for, I don't know, copying HTML. So in here, I'll make a new cursor window and say, make me HTML page that looks like this screenshot. And then we added these data attributes internally for like sections and whatnot. So I'll tell it to like use these HTML attributes and include this in the CSS. I mean, I could have set this up with a workflow, but I'm pretty manual right now. But yeah, so AI is gonna go in and like make me some HTML. And then the cool thing here is we built this editor where the HTML will then convert to Liquid. So this is an old version. I'm waiting for this to generate. Cool. So we got this HTML here. AI hopefully that did correctly. Bam. just copy the site in like a few seconds. So this is something we just finished internally yesterday. That's going to help me with like improving the data set and also just optimizing things a bit better. And from this HTML, we generated 3 Shopify specific files. So we generated a liquid file with the section and then the section index, and then also some liquid stuff. Or it's not liquid, theme liquid that has some of the global stuff that might be in a different file after. But yeah, I mean, this is a lot of specific things. I don't know why the editor demo didn't work the best, but the main focus here is next few weeks is just going to be data set stuff. So just scraping a bunch of designs and mapping it into our systems, and maybe in a few months tie that back into the Figma system. But yeah, I think funny enough, I think design is so fascinating and taste and whatnot, but it's all a tailwind is the answer. I think funny enough. But anyways, that's my rant and also my demo.
I'll tell you, as a previous Shopify store owner, the idea of exploring through the themes, not knowing exactly how it's going to translate into, my studio's retail lineup, and then committing by purchasing it, and that's it, right? And then I got to deal with that, and that's the one I own, and that's very difficult to modify. So I mean, this is way better.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, like to make it even more seamless for merchants. And like I have a call today with an agency who like they're a big Shopify agency in Toronto, Laser, and like I have another call after that with a Shopify developer who I spoke to. He was in town for Editions last week, and he's still complaining that there's no AI tools for him. So like there's this weird spot that we're in where we have this powerful tool with a lot of cool features, but now it's just about a matter of figuring out like who's this for? Like, is this for a merchant? Or is this for developers? Like what does it do? Like what problem does it solve? Is it for landing pages? And like that's kind of like where things are at. But in between all that, there's all these like technical things about like fixing data structures, like and like whatnot. And it's really fascinating. But yeah, it's a journey, but it's fun. Yeah.
And what do you think of the new Figma MCP that was released like a couple days ago? They claim to be doing similar stuff.
Figma's weird, man. I don't know. Like I'm an early Figma user, and I think there's just too many tabs going on here, and like it's sad for them because these make and design should be kind of one to one. But when you go into make, it's like I think they let you copy over artboards now, which is good, finally. Or you can copy over assets, which is also a little bit strange. You can't
I think
really
it's
you
not
can
the
paste the
UI. I
Figma
think
frame.
it's the MCP that I was talking about. So they basically just send an image or whatever, and it magically
Yeah,
generates
someone
a
online today was
template.
like, it's the same thing as make. Like they should make it more. So like try pasting a frame instead of a URL. Like the MCP, I think is going to be powerful for other people to go in and like convert like their Figma stuff into other tools. So I think MCP as like a whole is great, and like they wrote a lot about like how they made it work and like some of the challenges related to it. There I think it's a bit late, and it's weird to me that on Figma people are making money from all these conversion tools. Like I can try to pull this up really quickly. Someone's profile, I liked their post yesterday, and they ended up like let's see reactions. Let's see if I can find her post quickly. Like she had posted about the fact that I don't know if I can find it. She has a Figma plugin, and the Figma plugin is generating revenue. And I think I'm not sure if this is it here. And all the Figma plugin does is convert from Figma to React. I just find it strange. I think it's like there's so many people who are still stuck in this world of like converting from this Figma world to HTML, CSS. I think for me, the answer is you start from HTML, CSS first, and like
So
um,
I can tell you firsthand, I mean, I apologize for not connecting with you from the last time you presented. There's
no
a
worries.
company in Austria, their DDC brand, super cool, at Glorify, Glorfy, and they're sweating bullets. Yeah, sorry, it's Y. It's Ryfy. Coolest glasses ever. These guys invented this stuff themselves. This Y instead of I. And they've migrated their Shopify store and they're crapping their pants because it's so complicated to go from one theme to like another. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
and it's, guys, the analogy of that person that you just showed It's like when the people came out with the flashlight for the iPhone, and then Apple's like, shoot, that's a really smart idea. And then they just integrated it into their existing business, right? In terms of the ability to switch. I wonder if you've interviewed, like, to what extent does Shopify realize that if Shopify, your business risk is if Shopify realized that if they could make it less painless for people to switch themes, and Shopify took a cut off every time somebody switched a theme, would they be making exponentially more money, right? And like, would they, or is it like or is this like built-in friction on purpose, right? Because there's tons of people in on the Shopify ecosystem that just they just struggle. Like, I could tell you a Coney, like one of the top luxury brands, is launching your Shopify store. Lots of people, you've got all of these people who are not technical who will never do it, right? So, anyway.
I don't know about you, Alex, but I found very few products and businesses that have built in friction intentionally. It's normally always a mistake or an oversight or just like didn't like accidental, and they just
Speed
never got
bumps.
around to solving it.
Open
Yeah, it's like
AI.
WordPress themes. It's like migrating WordPress themes, right? Like it's
Nobody purposely builds friction, man.
Nobody. Oh
That's
no.
actually not right.
I think it's
AirPods
intentional.
Definitely they do.
I think it's intentional. Whether or not they know the side effects, I think it's all intentional. Yeah.
We have to
Really?
want to leave a few minutes for Braun as
Okay.
well.
I'll be really fast.
Thanks.
Shopify's ecosystem is big. If you look at the other people in the ecosystem, this one guy says, I wonder how many millions are lost because Shopify released a new AI generator. He makes a bunch of money on themes. And then they launched a new framework that just didn't work that well. It works well, but like there's just issues and like it just causes like a lot of problems. So who knows what the answer is? Happy to chat with anyone after. Sorry for taking the time. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from today's call is none of us have a moat. Whatever you build, someone will copy tomorrow and do a better version of, guaranteed. So no, you're never going to compete by being the best product. The only differentiation you guys, any of these things that I've seen today will have is just having a better distribution than the next guy. That's it.
Speed, hyper niche targeting.
Yeah, you show up and say I have a better version, a better widget. No one cares. Not that it isn't better. You obviously have a better version than what was before. The only way you compete is just to have better distribution and get your product in front of everyone else quicker, faster than the next guy. Like that's the reason why everyone uses Cursor, not Roo. It's just has better distribution. I think to Jed's point. Do we have Braun?
Braun?
We lost him last week. Let's see if we can get him this week.
Mr. Field Walker.
Maybe we should put him on at the beginning.
That's right. Next week we're leading with Braun.
Yeah, he never quite makes it to the end.
Yeah, that's a hockey dad. That's what that is.
Yeah. Well, this is the open mic portion. Anybody have anything they want to say, show, tell, whatever? This is your chance to show off your latest, greatest. This is it.
I got a little something.
Question for the Agentics team too. Sorry. What's like the coolest thing that you guys are excited about right now? Like what's like I guess there's a few of you guys here, but like what are the things that you're dreaming of building or like that you think is easier or fun to build now? Yeah.
Depending on which day you're at.
I'm looking forward to reproducing an AI-powered background noise cancellation tool, similar to what Crisp AI or Neep had presented as their offerings. I found a number of academic papers which talk about the methods and techniques, and I'll be releasing AIGI against it to see if it can reproduce those papers for myself.
So you're like a noise generator, like white noise? Is that what it is?
The other way around. Removing background noise from the speaker using on-machine AI. Crisp AI and Neep are the ones that do it today.
Am I giving off a lot of background noise currently? My fan might be pointed at my mic. No, it sounds like a cool, and that's like half the things I do is I point it at random research I stumble across and say, go build me that.
So I'm going to be
technical term, I
guilty of
think, is
saying I'm very excited
denoising.
about something I'm working heavily on. I'm very excited about semantic knowledge graphs and the ability to create ontologies of ontologies and graphs of graphs of graphs and taxonomies of taxonomies, because that is allowing me to have provenance. So one of the things I'm building is, for example, personalized news feeds, where I take news articles and I create semantic graphs of those news articles, and then I basically create semantic graphs of the target audience, the persona, and then I connect the dots. And with that, I get exact provenance of why I'm showing something to a particular individual. And you can apply that to all sorts of different things. So in a way, I'm using the LLMs only for the bit that I should be. I'm not using code. Of course, I'm going to use some of the code to help to create some LLMs to create the code. But the idea is to remove black magic and remove basically anything that doesn't give me provenance from the mix, right? And there's a huge amount of work that's been done in the past on semantic web, which was great, but it never scaled. So my approach is to actually use sort of cloud storage as a database. So I don't have well, I have a graph database, but my graph database is serverless, which I open source, by the way. And it's all about graphs of graphs, files of files, nodes and edges. So it's basically, I create all these sort of relationships. And I'm kind of moved away from the idea that there's one taxonomy, one ontology, one big definition. It's like we could all have different ontologies and taxonomies. We just need a way to start to connecting them. And that is really cool, because it brings a huge amount of provenance and explanation to content and eventually to code and stuff like that.
So you built this on what platform? Like using, like how you handle, is it from scratch or using some other library?
Yeah. So so it's all Python based. I basically did all serverless, so it runs everywhere, right? It runs from Lambda function to containers to bare metal to locally, whatever you want to run it, I can run it there. And it's basically this process of I take content, I create the semantic graphs, and I save it. So everything, I use the file disk as almost my cache, right? And it's all I can, I think I probably need a bit more time than I think we have now. But I've been published tons of stuff. I'll put the links here if you guys wanna play about with it, and maybe give me a slot next time, and I'll give you.
We love exploring graphs and semantic structures of various sorts, ontologies, and I'm always curious about sort of latency that those systems induce. But yeah, love to see what you're building. Are you using Network X library or some other library?
So I support that, but what I actually build my own graph database. So basically, the problem I always had with, first of all, the problem with most graph databases is they're fucking late, right? They're like the MS, right? The more you use it, the more you lose control of it, right? So and basically, my approach is to actually store. Imagine a serialized version of the graph that is serialized into disk, right? And then I load it and I transform it and I save it. So it's almost like my graph is like this map reduce function, where sometimes I expand, sometimes I contract, and every time I have like those queries, I end up saving it and allowing it to basically to be retrieved next. And I use S3 or basic any cloud storage as my database. So when you get the data, you go to the data directly, and if you do need to make some more complex queries, you just load it up in memory very quickly, manipulate it, and get results back. So what I found is that if you start from the premise that I'm going to evolve my schema and I'm going to have, sometimes, for example, a Python object. And by the way, another thing I open source was a strongly typed Python library, because the thing I hate from Python, I love everything else apart from the fact that it's not strongly typed. And he almost said, of course, I don't like, I coded a lot in .NET and Java and all that stuff in the past, right? There was one thing about having strongly typed that helps. So I built a strongly typed Python that I can serialize. So sometimes that's all you need for a graph. And sometimes you need actual nodes and edges, like you can get. And I use Network X, for example, when I need to run more complex graph calculations. But what I'm finding is that if you keep cleaning up the data, and if you keep cleaning up your schema as you go along, you don't actually need sometimes a lot of complex, right? Crazy complex graphs, because in a way, that's almost the complexity of the weight of the graph data that you pump into it. And usually it's because you haven't cleaned up your schema.
And what's an ideal application of a graph, would you say?
Well, I view that around. What's not an ideal application for a graph? Look, a good example is this thing here. Can I share my screen for a second?
Sure.
Right. So So if you look at this, right? Let me just share it. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen. Where is it? Right. Can you see? Yeah. Right. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Right. You guys can see this, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So very quickly, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour, right? So this is a persona, right? This describes a particular person. This is a bunch of news articles. The question is, how do I go from one persona to personalized articles, right? To the person. So this is personalized articles, right? This is an article for CISO, you got for CTO, etc. This could be one of you guys, right? Like this could be, that's the whole idea, right? So for every one of these things that I have here, right? And then I'm going to show you the data. You actually probably are interested in this more than others. So this is the message that I have. This is the prompt. This is the description basically that you have there, right? And this is online, and it's all open source, by the way, right? The coolest thing is that, yeah, you can paste these into an LLM, but the coolest thing is that when I talk to the LLMs, I always talk in schemas, right? So this is an example of what I mean by my type safe. It's like Pydantic, right? There's a variation of it. So what you have here is that this results, you can see my mouse, right? So this part here gives me that code there, right? And you could see the connections, right? So that means that I actually give it, this is the type. So I have an automatic conversion from here to the LLM call, right? And that means that when I get the responses, I can put it straight away into these codes, right? So there, right? So the key question here is, how do I go from this profile to that, right? So how do I say, hey, I have a fintech company here, I have a FinCISO, etc. So this is where I use an LLM. And by the way, I only use LLMs because the news industry doesn't give me this, right? Which is one of the things that I would like to change, right? Because if the news industry actually gave me an article with graphs and ontologies and taxonomies, I wouldn't need to do this, right? So it's quite interesting, right? So this is the schema for the persona. So you could see that I'm going to transform my persona into nodes and edges, which again, I can load this into a network X if I wanted to, right? And here, so I go from the text to here to that. This is a graph of a persona, for example, right? And here's a CTO, right? Graph. So just to zoom in, right? So there you go. You can see mid-sized company, that going to here, that going to that, etc. Right? So a CTO looks a little bit different, right? So the CTO has things like microservices, ML, etc. Right? It depends on this. So basically, this now becomes, how rich do I want to make this semantic graph? And also I have others where you have ontologies and taxonomies, which also help in defining this, right? So you can click cloud migration, ML, etc. So the question is, how do you connect? So I'm going to now do the same thing for the article. So this is the same equivalent coming from the articles. So that means that I take one article and I convert this, right? So this is a semantic graph of actually just the title, for example. And I can do this for titles, descriptions, the whole freaking lot, right? And then in this case, you could see critical vulnerabilities, etc. So for example, here I take that and that gives me two graphs. And actually, I actually get so many good results. Just this is already like almost a compressed version of the other two graphs. But you can already start to see the sense of gravity, right? So you look middleware, Next.js, critical vulnerability, authorization. So if you look another one, right? For example, you got here, that's the connection. Let's say, look, cyber attacks exploit Cisco. You got that, you got the CVE. So you can see that this is now the graph of the news, right? That the news article that was created. So then how do we connect this with that, right? So that's the question. So then that's what I then use another LLM call to basically take this persona graph. And by the way, this is how I send it to ChatGPT. So I don't send, or to LLMs, which I support all of them. So I don't just send this, I send that. So that is a tree version of this, which I actually find that I work really, really well. So the LLMs know this quite well. So again, this guy becomes that tree. So then the tree view represents the nodes and edges. So that's the edges, that's the nodes, right? And then that's the connection. So you can actually see here that you got nodes and edges, right? There. And then that's the system prompt that I give, where I give persona, news articles, etc. And that's the schema that I'm going to give it. So the key here is this part here. So this is what I'm going to get back, right? So what I'm going to get back is a connection between a persona entity to an article entity and the score and all the jazz. So I get this back, right? So you could say, hey, that guy from my persona connects to my article here, right? And that bit connects to here, right? And that's how I can go from my persona all the way to the middleware. So I can now show you exactly, and this is a simple example, right? I have more complex examples, right? But I can show exactly why I show this article to that particular persona, and every single transformation along the way got saved. So basically that's how I have almost a built-in cache structure, right? And in this case, it's quite cool because so you can see that connects to that, connects to that, connects to this, right? Same thing. And in this case, you can actually say, hey, why am I showing this? Because this is actually a bad article to show a CEO. And which is now I can reverse engineer, right? So now I can say, why did it happen? Oh, it's because there's a score here, 7.5, because it's actually not that, and that connection is actually very weak. Because if I look, for example, this one is a much better one, right? Where I got regulatory bodies, regulatory compliance, blah, 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 or this article is even better, CI pipelines, GitHub Actions. So that's a cool example of, from the persona side, my graph said CI pipelines, my article said GitHub Actions, I can connect that, right? And that's fundamentally how you connect one to the other. And this will scale for, almost just about a lot of things, right? I'm doing a bunch of other, by the way, I'm actually doing like multiple startups right now on using this open source technology. And they have variations of some of these things. So there you go. That's why I'm excited about it.
This is really cool, Dennis. It's super applicable to the office and studio management work that I've been doing, like just translating documents to different stakeholders, even from the standpoint of like the language that they use professionally is different from like your executives, your designers versus your tech team. This is really, really cool. Where's your repo located? Can you copy?
Yeah.
Can you put in the chat?
It's all open source, right? So basically, it's all on. So you can go. So basically, part of it is done on the Cyber Boardroom, which is where I started, right? I'll put the links there, right? And then
That'd
the
be
other
great.
stuff is on this OS bot, OWASP security bot, and this is literally, here you got every bit, right? You got the fast API, the robust utils. This is the one that has a type safe. Oh, actually, but if you guys want to do this stuff, I would recommend you to start kind of here, because I've been writing lots of documents. By the way, I maxed out freaking ChatGPT deep research, right? So I'm actually like feeling withdrawal syndrome today, because I got so used to creating these really cool documents, right? Where I can literally come in here, right? And like, for example, I can create these really nice detailed documents, right? About this explanation stuff. And actually on my startup, you can actually come in here, and there's a repo here that has the CBI investment, and then you can see here every document I created, right? So I actually wrote all these documents. In fact, the question I was asking the other guy about the thing, it's about this bit here, right? So this is run everywhere strategy, right? I described how I did it, and there's even one here that has worldly maps, which is another of my favorite topics, right? That explains how you actually, like the LLM as a commodity, right? So there's a nice worldly map there. There's how you connect through, right? You can actually play with that, right? So by the way, every startup should have one of these, right? Because this is when you say, this is what I'm moving here. So I didn't want to take too much time.
Dennis, just a quick question. Is your database in your GitHub repo you just linked?
My database is cloud storage.
No, the one you said, the graph database, right?
Yes, it is. So the graph database is called mgraphdb, right? And actually, you can read about here, right? And basically, it is. Sorry, can I share my screen again? So,
well, if you just post the link, I think it's.
I'll post it there, right? And so I use that, right, to create the nodes and edges. And fundamentally, it's a Python. Think of it as a serialized version of a graph object that is actually very easy to convert to any of the other. And I have an export to Neo4j, to I think MemRMX, a bunch of others. But it's just a way for me to code in nodes and edges, right? And so, and what I found there's a lot of people, a lot of time teams get very focused on one thing. It's like they just want to use graph database, so just want to use that stuff. My approach is sometimes a Python object is all you need, right? Because which is already a graph, right? If you want to think about it. But sometimes you need nodes and edges, and nodes and edges allow you to ask questions and get answers that sometimes would be very hard otherwise. Right. And I just load it up, and then I convert them into nodes and edges, and I can save it, and I can even do graphs or graphs or graphs. Okay. And maybe next time I'll do a more deep dive if you guys want me to go.
Familiar? There is a project called LinkML. Basically, you express your like things in ontologies, and it just creates Python definitions. So it actually creates a bunch of stuff. SQL tables, like Pythonic definition. You just ask it; it just does it.
Look, I think these things about being pragmatic, right? Like the reason I built that is I needed a serverless way to run graph queries that
Right.
it didn't cost me anything, right? So look, my principle on all the startups I'm creating is that there has to be minimal overhead, so everything has to be freaking serverless, right? Or everything has to run in sort of ephemeral infrastructure, right? So that means there's no cost when it's not running, and then the main cost, which is going to be the LLMs or a bit of compute, you just pass that to the customers. That's kind of the model I'm applying everywhere, right? And now that's possible, right? Although it wasn't easy, right? Because it took me like 3 months to build a stack that actually compiles and builds and deploys everywhere, right? You think it's easy. It's not until you tried it.
Yeah, and another thing, so you build all this persona graph. Are you building embeddings from them, or you just...
I have a massive problem with embeddings. Massive. Because for me, I want to remove anything that's black magic, right? So embedding is magic, right? You don't know. You know it's an approximation, right? But you don't know there, right? So that's why I like the semantic knowledge graphs, because if you think about it, you go for deterministic. But the more important thing is that you have to allow the customers and the users to customize it, to fine-tune the graph. Look, I was building gigantic graphs in Jira, for example, right, with my teams, and I realized I couldn't get them to freaking agree, right, on the terms. And then I realized it's okay. You guys can call what the hell you want in your team. AppSec calls something, risk calls something, etc. I just needed a way to clean them up, to connect them in the graph. So in a way, I don't care almost, what ontology and taxonomy you use. I just care that we can then have threads where we can connect them, and then you can allow the users and the personas to define it.
Hey, so Dennis, I got a question for you then. So when you're connecting all of those relationships, is it your code that's doing the connecting, or are you offloading that with a prompt to a model?
So I'm using the LLMs to kickstart that process.
Okay.
Right? Because that was the bit that I think the previous generation of semantic web crowds did not have, because they forced everybody to create gigantic and spend a lot of time making the connections. And I found that the LLMs are actually very good at that, especially if you then do several in parallel and you want to check the other. But my thinking here is ultimately I don't want the LLM to make the connections, because the ontology should be good enough that you then use normal graph connections.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Also, if you're processing 1 million docs an hour, that's a lot of token cost.
It would be, but the thing about this is that, okay, first of all, you're gonna have that problem anyway, right? If you have 1 million. But my model is always like, you do something, you save it, right? I even wrote a paper called Let's, right, which is load, extract, transform, and save. So on your 1 million documents, I would do 1 document at a time, and then I would do transformations. So instead of having like this massive black box or doing the stuff or loading that into a massive database, I just do transformations on them. And then let's say a document, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm doing a project where I'm creating a customized version. I'm filtering data from a website, right? So I'm actually taking every web page and I'm creating a graph for every single web page. And the graph is actually, the first graph is literally a JSON version of HTML that I save. That's it. And then I create another graph, which is a transformation. And I, for example, create one graph, which is now type safe of all the HTML elements. And then I'm going to create another one, for example, that starts with all the text nodes and then navigates up. Right? So, and that's how I operate. So it's almost like it's really super fast, because reading is going directly to cloud storage. So read is like 2 to 20 milliseconds. And the write is the only time you do transformations. And if you go like this, in a way, your data starts to get cleaned up, right? Because because everything is on a pipeline, literally, I can rebuild the whole thing all the time, right? So I'm not locked to a schema, right? I can almost say, if I'm halfway through going, oh, that doesn't work very well, I can just literally rebuild all my data sets.
So I actually have I love it. I appreciate it. This is awesome, because I'm going to try it with, we were talking about what we're building. I'm playing with a locally with a local agentic model for a basically an AI panelist. So it listens in to everybody that's on the panel, and then it offers its input with subject matter or something like that. But there's a there's a data pipeline issue there. You got the text that's coming in, so voice to text, and you're processing that, and then you're processing what does that schema look like? How are we doing short-term versus long-term memory? And then how are we, compiling that back into like something back into speech that's has a latency that makes sense, you know. And I think this is a really cool way to kind of break that that knowledge graph down, and just the memory in general for that particular project. So yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's going to be fun to try out.
So the way you describe it, so I see, I have another project where I'm doing like an SME policy advisor, and the logic is that as the SME interacts, basically it's SME, small medium companies in UK, right? As they interact with risk questions, I build a graph, right? So in fact, I'm using that startup to really get this. So my idea there is that whenever you have an interaction with anything, you should be building a graph, right? At almost in real time, right? And the beauty of that is that this then doesn't require you to be 100% right. Because actually, once you introduce, let's say, your panelists, right? Like, imagine a world where, as we're talking here, there's these graphs on the side, right? And in a way, the graphs are going to make assumptions, but I'm happy to correct if there's a good UI. I'm happy to go, oh, I care more about this, I care more about that, I don't care about this, you know. But the key is to have those semantic graphs, right, with the ontology that define the rules of the game, the taxonomy that define the terms, and then that scales to the point where I think ultimately we will bring our own graphs to the table, right? I will have my own persona that I bring in, and my persona is fundamentally a series of graphs, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I see another application I'm working on, kind of very parallel, where I think there's a strong integration, but it's essentially having a master document that is actually flagged for different purposes, especially if you want to have, say, with this world, here's documentation that might include pseudocode that is appropriate for AI code generation. Here's other sections that are appropriate for X compliance. Here's ones that are only appropriate for executives. So rather than having multiple documentation all spread throughout your organization, you have one master document that is now flagged for different areas. Now I definitely see a massive implication, because if those are pre-labeled, so you have determinism, having this matched up to essentially personalized one-on-one based on your persona. As long as you follow certain rules, I see a strong. I think this is a big way to the future.
And the work I started doing in a cyber boardroom when I got there, because look, I developed a cyber boardroom because the biggest problem is how do you communicate cybersecurity to executives, right? Both board members, executives, and peers. And what I realized was that there isn't one persona. Like, each persona is a combination of the individual, their language, their culture, their state, who they care about. Is this gigantic graph, right? The politics between the freaking board members, what they want to do, how they want to consume it, all of that. But if you start to capture that, then you communicate crazily effectively, which is what an exec does, right? And I think that's where it gets interesting, right? And in your case, the other element I was just say is that think of also of creating mini, basically, or customized versions of that content, like per individual. And these days you can even create customized apps. It's not even just customized content.
But at the document stage, if you have at the document stage the pre-done flags, like if you're in a private organization, most managers are not allowed to see global sales because that's private only to area, but the content for X policy should be available to everyone. So if you're matching up with hard-coded flags for compliance matched up with yours, now you're getting a tailored message just for.
But I wouldn't do that in a document, man. I these days I view documents as the output of a graph, right? So documents should not be your data store. Your data store should actually be, and think about it, like, you already talk about compliance and requirements. Like, this is where I think there's going to be such a massive shit show with a lot of the stuff that a lot of people are putting AIs on, is because they're not taking into account that those rules for identity access management, role-based security, that is really hard, right? Like, literally, my whole industry was trying to freaking solve those problems, right? And the only sane way to deal with that is when the data is not there in the first place, right? So I assume that anytime you talk to an LLM, you can extract everything that is on that LLM. You can get that LLM to do 100% of its capabilities.
Yeah. So the next stage after
And by the way, somebody was saying that they don't run their stuff locally, right? They run on VMs, right? I think it was you, right?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, you're not paranoid, man. You're sane, right? Because you have to run everything in disposable environments, right? Because even from a security exposure point of view, right?
Well, it's also for me, it's like it's a latency issue as well. I can't have it processing on the cloud and then there's transmission and then there's receiving time that does that. If I want something to be as real time as I possibly can, it's got to be local. It's got to be VM.
Yeah, look, guys. Anybody want to talk about graphs and maps? I'm always game for it. I see the whole world as graphs.
Fascinating. Is this the document that you shared? Is it available for a weekend enjoyable read? So
Yeah. Oh, I have far much more stuff.
I would love to go through it. I realize you're in London, aren't you?
I'm in London. Yeah. I'm in London.
Yeah, I think we need to catch up. We have a group here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm in Chiswick, so West London, right? So
in Chiswick. Okay, lovely. I'm in Kent on the other side. Okay.
Oh, isn't
Look,
Jira?
I'll ask some questions. I'm on the WhatsApp group, by the way. So again, if you guys.
Okay.
Hey, guys, we got to wrap up here, but quickly, that was really interesting, by the way. Really, I love what you're doing with the graph stuff. There was a new MCP that came out earlier from Hugging Face. I was playing it with it actually while you guys were doing your little chat. It's pretty cool. It allows you to interact with any of the Hugging Face spaces as an MCP. So literally, while you guys were chatting, I installed the MCP, and then I randomly connected to one of the models to do like image gen, just to see how it worked. And yeah, within like literally 30 seconds, I was using the Flux One image gen model hosted on Hugging Face like in seconds. It's pretty. It's pretty cool. Like here, let me show you some of the capabilities just quick. I got to jump to another call here, but yeah, here. So here's the extension. I've got I can search spaces. I can do model searches. I can get model details, papers, various other data set components. This one here is what I quickly looked at, and I was able to add that and get a response. So basically, you can add any of these models to your environment. In this case, I just added a couple just to see. So this is an easy image gen, another image gen. Yeah, so you can basically add these quickly. So anything that exists on Hugging Face can now be exposed and interacted with via this MCP, which I did here. And you can see here, I did a quick, a quick little, a future. Here's an example of rated, and within a second, I had this image, and yeah. So if you're a fan of Hugging Face, it's definitely worth taking a look at. Pretty cool. Like we're here. Let's go back to the site here for a sec. I gotta jump here,
Poor
but
man from DUI.
oh, why isn't it letting me switch screens? Oh, bit of a delay here. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. Let's try doing this way.
Is this MCP integration JS file in your gist, Groove?
No, I just did it quickly just as a test. But basically, you go to you go to the site, then you can pick your tools, and then I randomly picked a few tools to add to it. So I went down here, and you can see I picked a few image related tools here that shows up now. So I can literally go here and I can search for whatever. Like we'll do llama or whatever. And I guess there's no llamas, but let's do a graph just since we're talking about that. So I can choose the graph. So if you guys post your graph, I can add it. And basically any Gradio server can get turned into a MCP in about 2 seconds. Pretty cool actually. So what else can I search for? I don't know. Let's do video. I'll just choose a random video one, text to video. So then I go here, jump back into my I'll go here, refresh it. I'll go here, refresh, and assuming the demo gods smile on me, we should see the actual video option here at the bottom. Yeah, here we go, video. So it's pretty cool. Worth a look. There's anything that can be exposed by an MCP, I guess will be. Really neat feature.
My security head says, what could go wrong, right?
Well, you got to trust you trust Amazon, but you don't trust, I guess, Hugging Face. Somewhere you got to trust someone. You're right.
I don't trust.
Right.
Systems are designed not to trust, right?
Well, so where are you deploying your serverless functions on your
No, what
local
I'm saying
machine?
is that the way you need to do with this is like I think the challenge with MCP is basically from a threat modeling point of view, right? It's actually over provisioning stuff, right? And I think we'll clean it up once we get better job at creating these environments that only have the permissions to do something, right?
Well, this is explicit permissions based on the token that you're getting from Hugging Face, which they've done a pretty good job of explicit permissioning, time to live, all kinds of things. Now, again, it's Hugging Face, so it's up to you. But that in the world of AI, everyone uses it. It's generally pretty trusted.
I'm saying my problem. Look, my fundamental problem there is not, for example, Hugging Face, right? Is the fact that you now just create a connection to a model that is receiving data that could be, malicious or all sorts of stuff. So now it connects to another capability. Is the API of it, the connections of APIs, right? Like literally is the problem that we've been having with
that's not an MCP problem. That is
no.
That's every API ever, right?
It is.
So, MCP is just an abstraction of APIs in general, right? Yeah, it's like Postman. Like I could go on one of these rapid API sites and randomly choose an API and they steal all my information. That's on me, right? And so it's, and if I'm super paranoid, I can create an MCP server in Gradio in literally 30 seconds, right? And I can run it completely locally if I wanted to. Just clone the space and run it myself. But for some things, you just want to test it quick. So it's cool. I like it.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, and I like the B-sides. Like you're OG, huh? You're good. It's sides.
Oh yeah, it was in London. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Thanks everyone. I gotta jump. If anyone's interested, Genetics.org, we've got come several different meetups coming up around the globe. I think I got wind that there's one happening in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore as well that's being organized. I think we have a sponsor for that. So if anyone's in that part of the world, I know it's middle of the night there right now, but you're more than welcome to help organize that. Just a shout out to the Stockholm team. Their event is on the 17th. I think we're maxed out. So if anyone has a lead on a bigger space in Stockholm, we could certainly use it. I know that the Ericsson guys have a really nice space that we potentially could use. It fits hundreds, but currently our space is limited to 12. It's kind of unfortunate and it's maxed. So if you've got a lead on Stockholm, feel free to reach out and we could use a bigger space there. And yeah, that's it for another AI Hackerspace. It's always the highlight of my week. Really appreciate everyone that's taking the time to present. I learn more from you guys in this hour and a half than I do from anything else I do all week. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time. So thanks everyone, and thanks for the shirt.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, you guys are making us feel jealous now. I mean,
yeah. How about this? How about if you help organize a local event, we'll get you a shirt, and maybe the logo won't be quite as big, but we'll figure out a way to get you some shirts, and maybe we'll do some more hacker style shirts with a hoodie or something. Nice. More like the B-side shirts that Dennis has. All right, gotta jump.
No, you need hoodies.
Yeah, totally need a hoodie. With a bear. Well, we need a mascot. Maybe it won't be a bear. Maybe it'll be like like something crazy, like a mongoose or something. All right, I just totally made that up. All right, I'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Thanks again.
Yeah, Dennis, I basically messaged you. I believe you mean the London Agentics group, right?
Sorry?
You meant the London Agentics WhatsApp group, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. Actually.
There are a few, so
I didn't realize there was
I can't see your name in.
No, I'm not on that one. I think that was a time where there was so many agentic things. I subscribed to a couple, and it was okay, enough, man. So if there's a London one, I'll join in.
I have messaged you on LinkedIn. Let's connect up, and then I think I'll let me introduce. I think Mark DeRegic. I think I mentioned to him about you just now. He said he knows you. So
is there a London thingy?
Yeah. So why don't I drop you my phone number here and just message me. Okay. That's my number. Just message me and I'll connect you.
And you have a WhatsApp channel too, right? Don't you?
Yeah, we have, but I think Dennis is not there on that group, is what I realize now.
Okay.
So
all right, I'm late. I'm late for my next call, guys. I gotta go. I'm shutting this down. Thanks everyone. Okay.
Thank you.